How are we all? All excited for another judging? Excellent, that's what we like to see. Okay, so this afternoon in this room we're going to be judging the 2017 AIPP album category. Now, let me introduce myself first of all. I'm David Patterson and I'll be chairing this panel. But before I introduce all our judges, I'd just like to introduce Libby Jeffries and Jeff Hunt from Memento Pro, who are our very proud sponsors for this category. They'd like to pop up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Jeff has abandoned me, so I'll do this on my own. I think I know quite a few people. Memento Pro, if you don't know us. Is that good? Yep. We create albums, so if you ever need one, please come and chat to us. But more importantly, we are, funnily enough, quite excited about sponsoring this category. We've sponsored the book category for years, but never album. And I've actually never sat in on an album judging session before, so we're interested in learning, and good luck to all of the entrants.
Thank you, Libby. Very much appreciated. I'll just pop that microphone down there. And your support for the AIPP and APPA is extremely appreciated. As too is our platinum sponsors, Olympus, Aeon and Panasonic. And their support is very much appreciated. So, let me introduce to the judging panel Shireen Hammond, Master of Photography from Victoria, with 3 gold bars, as I keep being pointed out. Doesn't matter. Kelly Tunney from the ACT, Master of Photography, with 2 gold bars. Thank you for doing it that way. While we're on the ladies, Annie Payne from New South Wales, Master of Photography, who isn't... Okay. And standing up there ready to join the panel, Jerry Johannes. Master of Photography, please take a seat. And last but not least, our other boy, James Simmons from WA, Master of Photography, with 1 gold bar. Thank you for that. Okay, before we start, I will just give you a little bit of a preamble. And I'm just reading from the entry form here, the preamble, which is in extremely small font. Okay. The 2017 AIPP Australian Album of the Year Award. Judging will take place digitally, as you can see. Judges will be asked to consider storytelling qualities, impact, style, technique, lighting, posing, expressions, composition, saleability, design and creativity. Just a few things. Would you like me to run through it again? I know it's a lot to remember, James. However, this award will be judged in 4 sections. Section 1, Wedding Album Single Photographer. Any wedding album in which a single photographer is the sole shooter. Second subsection, Wedding Album Multiple Photographers. Any wedding album that is the result of the work of multiple photographers. All photographers should be credited. Third section, Portrait Album. Any album featuring families, individuals or pets. And the fourth section, Event Album. Any non-wedding or engagement album. This includes, but is not limited to, special projects, parties, but not wedding receptions, graduation, school formals, bar bat mitzvahs, gay hollands, etc. Do we have any questions? Now, judges, the format that we're going to follow today is we'll run through the album. I think we've settled on 3 or 5 seconds. 5 seconds per page, so you get a good view of it. And then we shall score. Once I have the scores up in front of me in the average, if there is anyone who is eligible to challenge and wishes to challenge, before we start the discussion, we'll run through it a second time. Okay, so then you get a second viewing. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Thank you very much. Let's have our first album, please. And I'll simply because when we're judging a print, you get a chance to get up and have a second look at it because someone's challenged it and you know that you're going to have to rescore it. It's only fair that you actually get another look at it. Same as you'd get up and check a printout. I can't tell at the moment till I start the judging, but I will certainly let you know when we change. So our first one will be Wedding Album, Single Shooter.
Or maybe event album.
Now, on saying that, bear with me one moment. On saying that, on my screen it says Event Album. Okay. So I will consider it to be an event album. It'll be fairly obvious though. Okay. Ready to go. Eyes forward. Okay, judges, can we have your scores? The album has scored 79. Thank you, Shireen. We have Shireen on 86, so there will be a challenge, and I'll accept that challenge, and we'll run through it a second time. Thank you. No, we'll run through it a second time, so everyone's had a chance to have a look before they comment. Okay. So, Shireen, if you'd like to start the debate, you have a little bit of support there and
Okay.
another one on 78.
78, okay. Okay, so I found this a refreshing, raw, interesting, kind of modernist take on life today. I love that it's this kind of study of people in a way that I don't really look at them, because I tend to look, being the kind of photographer that I am, I kind of tend to look at people who are in love and having romance. And sometimes I forget to just look at the everyday. And I found that this showed me that. It showed me the everyday today of what it's like, and I really enjoyed that. That very subtle yellow line that either is a line or a circle or a dot that just keeps coming through the album connected the dots for me from the different kind of people that there were within the album. And I thought that was actually really clever, because it flowed right from the beginning of the album right through to the end of the album, and showed up even in just, there was a tiny little yellow line right in the corner of one page, and yet every time it did, I kept looking at that particular page a little bit more, and I just thought that it was really well put together. So I'm rewarding the author for presenting me something that I found interesting that I wanted to talk about.
Great, thank you. Jerry, you're at the other end of the scale. If you'd like to have a word, please.
Certainly, I think it was a great attempt at some street photography. Unfortunately, though, I'm looking at the image as a collective, because we're rewarding the album as a whole. I feel that there wasn't enough consistency with, was it photojournalistic? Was it portrait-driven? Was it a bit of everything? There was sometimes people playing up to the camera, which sort of watered down the portraits. They were a bit more serious. There were ones that... So I'm looking at it, I don't really get a narrative or a story. It was purely just, it looked to me like a journey of someone in an Asian country just having some fun there. The pictures were quite elementary. They were good, but they were elementary. The design element, I feel, didn't add to it. Yes, at least the yellow carried through, but we got honeycomb grids, we had circles, we had diagonals. It almost looked like an interview magazine. Like if you look at that, so that raw, cool, Vogue style shapes, but I don't think it added. I think it actually was a bit over-designed. So, good narrative to a certain extent, but I don't think there was enough consistency.
Thank you for that. I think we'll have a little bit more debate. What we might do is go to Kelly on 82, and then we'll come to Annie, and back to you, Shireen. James, you're on 78. Might be best to listen, because you're on that cusp. Unless you have something to add. If you have something to add, certainly put your hand up.
I'm a little bit more with you, actually, and I'd be happy to see it just a couple more points to get it into silver. Just, I think, with the concept with the design, and it's very modern, in keeping with the very modern street photography. I didn't feel that there was parts, yes, and that's why I didn't score it into silver distinction, that there was a lot of images that probably didn't need to be there. It sort of did water down the overall feeling of it, but I think in keeping with a really modern design with the strips of yellow, the unusual spot colouring, it kind of worked for the photography that it was trying to sell, I guess. I think it's a silver for me, probably not a silver distinction, but...
Thank you. And Annie?
Yeah, when the album started, I really enjoyed the first few spreads. I thought they were very strong, and I was really excited about that, the street photography and the use of the graphics of the trains and the roads, and I felt like it was taking me into it. After the first 3 or 4 spreads, I then was all over the place, like, what is this? Where are we going? And some of the images themselves were very weak, and that kept breaking down the strength that it originally had. So for me, I think that the selection of images could have been a lot stronger to continue with that flow. And so I didn't see it beyond good professional practice.
Thank you. Shireen?
I think that the author probably had a choice here and could have gone one way or the other. The fact that there were people looking into the camera and not, I don't know how many times that you've been going to quietly get a candid shot and then all of a sudden they turn, see you and look at you and then they'll make some sort of face or things like that. But I see that happening all the time. So I think that that actually had a place in the album to have some contact with the actual... And because they did have some contact with me, that actually drew me into the album that little bit more. So I didn't mind that aspect of it. I thought that was actually quite interesting. I think if it had been totally candid, it would have been a little bit... For me, it would have been a little bit boring, because it would have been too much of the same. So the fact that they've given us something a little bit different, the graphical element with the yellow, I actually did enjoy that. I enjoyed it because I didn't know what was coming next. It did go a bit mad sometimes, but life is a bit mad sometimes, and the way that was presented, I enjoyed. So as a modernist take with very raw images, I love that it wasn't overproduced. I love that it was messy. For the things that perhaps some of our esteemed judges have said they didn't like, I actually liked it for that. So that's what I'm rewarding.
Okay, thank you.
I'm asking you to take it up into a solid silver. Thank you.
The album currently sits on 79, but judges, if you could please rescore. And the Prince score is 79 by majority. Okay, thank you. No, that's a very acceptable score, and it's of high professional practice. Okay, thank you, judges. We'll go to the next album, please. And judges, this is a portrait album. And we have a score of 72. And we'll have a comment from Jerry, please.
It's really important when you're preparing images for an album competition that you show the full spread. I can only assume that that negative space when we saw nothing but white, that could be referring to left and right hand side pages of an album. So it's confusing from our perspective to know where that fits. So my advice would be to show left and right. And also every so often you can actually show the context of the album, the physicality of the album, so we understand. The images seem more of a collection of images more than an actual album that's cohesive.
Thank you very much for those comments, Jerry. Very much appreciated. Okay, we have a score of 72. I'm going to accept that score. And we have our second portrait album. Thank you, judges. Please score. And we have a score of 78. I'd like to see that hand in the air. We have a challenge from Annie on 83. So I'm going to accept that challenge, and then we will have another viewing of the album, portrait album. Okay.
I apologise in advance if this is out of line. Can we have the debate, then watch it again? Because I feel like we've just seen it, and I feel like we can soak in the comments, re-watch it, and then with a fresh perspective. Because now I'm getting the same perspective I'm getting before. Is that cool with you guys?
Look, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Annie, if you'd like, please.
Great. Yeah, I gave this 83 solid silver. I feel like the photographer has really brought a strong sense of their own style to this album, and consistently throughout the album. So to me, it was a really strong look at what an album, can be about, coming from the photographer, the design-wise, lighting-wise, feeling-wise, colour, all of those kind of things, and they've really brought out the personality of the subject. I feel like they're really involved in the photography session, and to me it worked really well, came really well together, and I awarded it with a silver.
Thank you, Annie. Let's go to Kelly on 72.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of sections of images that were, say, in particular on the same spread, that just had different treatments. Like there was a black and white sort of spread throughout. In one particular case, it was sort of a bit cooler and then a bit sort of sepia in one spread, and then later on it was a bit more true black and white. So that consistency in throughout the layouts just weren't there for me, I think. And in particular, I suppose, like a lot of lovely moments and some actually really well shot and well lit images throughout some, but in the beginning there's some that were just a bit too contrived, and we've sort of got the on their own again really didn't hold a lot of weight for me, but the most thing was just the consistency in the treatment.
Thank you, Kelly. We might have a quick word from Shireen.
Well, what I liked is that when I go through an album of this kind, I like to be taken on a journey, and I was taken on a journey of these people's life. It felt like it was a bit stiff in the beginning for me, and I think that's because sometimes when you first start shooting people, they are a little bit, hesitant to kind of let completely go. But by the end of the album, they had really let go. They were involved. You could see them getting closer and closer. I really liked the story through this album of this couple, and I thought it was really nice of the author to take it all the way through from having the baby, and not just leaving it as a pregnancy album. So I actually thought I wanted to reward the author for that. Just that I enjoyed the imagery. I understand about the treatment. I agree a bit with you on that one, Kelly. So that's why I didn't go high, but I did think it was worthy of for the effort, the consistency of the actual images where the couple were concerned, and getting into the family, getting beautiful expressions, and actually going right the way through. That's what I awarded.
Okay, gentlemen, anyone like to talk? James?
Yeah, sure. The photographer's really thrown everything at this family. They've done so much work, and they've included so much where I think it's almost doing it a disservice, because they've shot some stuff in the studio, in their home, against blank walls, with natural light, some with flash. They've really put so much into it where I think it would benefit from a bit of a cull, because I think there are some really weak images that let it down, where there is some strong work there. And if it was refined back, to the best of the images, and maybe even just leave out the ones where the people are feeling really stiff, and get into the stuff that tells us a bit more about them, it would strengthen the storyline in total. And just maybe sticking with one style and just going, that's me and that's the look I'm going to give these guys, would kind of plant their voice a little stronger in this, because they seem to be jumping through to a few different techniques.
Thank you, James. Let's go back to Annie for her right of reply.
Yeah, I think that's some really valuable feedback, actually, especially what James is saying there. And I do agree that on this album, I do agree that less is more, and that the photographer could have cut back and made it stronger in that sense. However, I am still just rewarding what I'm being presented with, and I feel like even with those limitations, that what the photographer has presented to us does still sit within that silver range, and that there is so much of their effort coming through there, but also the connection with the family as well. So it'd be good to have another look.
Thank you, judges, for all those comments. Now we will review and then rescore. Okay, judges. The album had scored 78. But you're all free to change your scores, and Annie's locked in on 83. And the Prince scored 79. It's gone up 1 point. Every point counts. Thank you. I'll accept that score, and just bear with me, judges. I'm going to the next set, which will be wedding album, multiple photographers. Ready to go. And while the judges are contemplating this album, I just remind everybody that this category is sponsored by Memento Pro. We're also very proud to have them on board as sponsors, as well as the book. So for all your book and album needs, get along and see Jeff and Libby. Great. Okay, judges, please enter your scores. Album scores 88, silver with distinction. Round of applause. We have two challenges, Kelly on 91, but James on 93. James, there's no winning. I'm just going to take your score, your challenge, as the highest score.
Highest score should go though, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Water coverage. 3 epic days in these people's lives that it's been documented in such a way that the approach is so gentle and it honours the place and the people that have been documented in such a natural way. Beautiful use of natural light throughout the thing. Stylistically, it's quite cinematic, and while the images are kind of bounce between brooding and fun and playful, but still have that authenticity that runs deep through that style of work, and just surrounded by epic locations with amazing people and just seen in such a beautiful way that it doesn't really get much better than that. I don't believe. I think the sort of service that person's given them is just outstanding. Like, it's gone well far beyond what is normal or what is considered what we should be doing. I think every image is just really profound in its documentary vision. Even the stuff that is more directed still has that nice softness to it that allows it to look authentic. So hands down, like I'm stoked on that. That's epic. I'm gold. Bring it up to gold. It's already there. It's almost so close.
Thank you, James. Shireen on 83.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just going to change my score, really.
Okay. Judges, we're going to let everyone have a little chat on this one.
It's a challenging album in many ways, and just a quick little comment. The leaves behind it, and I know we're trying to be creative in actually showing it off, being tribal and ceremonial. I think that the album says that enough. Looking at the photographs, it's almost like a B-roll. The whole wedding is B-roll. It's a moment between a moment, which I actually quite like. It's understated. It's quite sophisticated. The problem is, I get to the end of the album and I don't really get a sense of who these people are. I don't really know them yet. I don't know if a wedding album or an album is the kind of album that you want to know how mum and dad got married. And being so steeped in tradition and ceremony, where they did get married, it was barely a handful of spreads, and I felt like we're missing part of that story. Like I said, I do love the sophistication of it. I love the fact that it's not over the top, it's not finessed, it wasn't overposed, it was just moments between moments. I need a little bit more convincing though.
Okay, we'll go to Kelly and then back to you, Annie.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful sometimes when you're presented with these albums in these exotic locations that you can only ever dream of going to. So I was very conscious of looking at these spots and thinking, how would I do that? I would do that. I would do this. And it's like, wow, so I didn't want to get me over the line just because of where it was. I didn't mind the unique presentation that we've been given. It didn't bother me at all. But I think, you're talking about moments on moments, like you're shooting for the couple, and sometimes we think, well, it has to be about the parents, and it has to be about the guests, and it has to be about this, and you have to tick all these boxes. Sometimes it's not for couples. Sometimes it's quieter and it is more personal, and it's just for the two of them, not a grand party in Egypt or wherever they might have been. So for me, I just think it's design, and I did pay particular attention to every single image, and trying to look at it as a standalone. And I was taken up and down, up and down, up and down, and I think I'm glad it's sort of took us through those 3 parts of like that warm-up sort of, and we do that when we do destination weddings. We're just going to have some time with a couple and get used to each other and feel comfortable and get to know the location. And then it had some really beautiful moments of the ceremony as well, which I'm glad they were there and it just wasn't about them. So to me, that tied it all in together to score a gold.
Thank you, Kelly. Annie?
Yeah, I definitely am happy with it sitting in silver distinction. That's some of the images were very, very strong. But to go into gold, I really feel like we have to be breaking the boundaries of something unique and something original and really somewhere we haven't been before. And I'm looking forward to seeing it again. I haven't decided that yet because there is a lot there. And, I'm wondering whether there could have been less to give us that stronger message. And I do find the background very distracting for being there for such a long time. It's a busy background and a strong background, and I kind of want to, I need to see it again. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you. We've all had a chat. We now go back to James for his right of reply.
I just want to implore you guys just to ignore the background because we're judging the album, not the background. So it's kind of neither here nor there. Granted, might be a little bit distracting, but let's just look at the beautiful images in the spreads. It's a full journey, and if that's B-roll, that's all I do. My B-roll is my A-roll because that's the way I'd see the world. It's the the candidacy of it all. It's a natural flow. It's about the journey. Doesn't always need to be the profound moments.
That was a compliment to it.
Oh yeah. I guess that's where it gets that cinematic sort of feel because you can see the journey and the progress, and there's not one part of the day that they miss. Even from being in the vehicles on the way to the wedding, and that's even just shot so beautifully with the light shaft coming through the windows into their eyes and things like that. Be able to pick up amazing frames in just such odd circumstances. I think just has really taken us on a complete journey, and I think it's just the attention to detail that they paid from start to finish for those 3 days. I think is just so well covered that it's deserving of a gold.
Okay, thank you, judges, for all those comments. We're going to have a rerun now before we rescore. Thank you. Thank you, judges. We have scores coming through. Unanimous. 91, gold award. 93, 90, 90, 90, 93. Excellent work, judges. Okay. Nice deep breath. And we will go to... I now have to go into our next set. And we shall start the judging. And we will be judging wedding album, single photographer. And we will start with our first album. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Let's have our scores there, judges. Fast game's a good game, Jimbo. Thank you. We have a score of 79. And there's no one in a position to challenge. So what we will do is take a comment. And both Annie and Shireen are on the average. Would either of you like to have a comment? Thank you.
Yeah, I felt that this was a strong professional album with a lot of consistency throughout. I sat on the fence at 79 because I felt like for me to go into the silver range, it had to just lift me into somewhere new, somewhere that shows a bit more strength with the photographer.
Great, thank you very much. I'll accept that score, and we will have our next wedding album. Thank you. Thank you, judges. The album scores 76. And we don't have a challenge in the positive, so I will accept that score and take a comment from Jerry. Thank you very much.
Great saleable work there, certainly. I feel, though, that the design element was just a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, we've gone from vintage to black and white to colour to different shapes and different diagonals and things like that. If you're listening at home or in the audience right now, I want you to think of an album like you're walking into a house. The house has a theme. It's a strong entry. That's the first image. You walk in, every bedroom is harmonious with each other. That's the spread of a wedding album. You go to the next room, it can have its own independent flavour, but it's got to be somewhat consistent with the rest of it. And then as you exit, you want to feel like you've just had a great experience. And I think that this is a simple over-design exercise.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we accept that score, and we shall go to the next album. Thank you. Judges, if we can have a score. And we have a score of 78. And a challenge from Annie on 84. Thank you, Annie.
A little bit on my own. Yeah, I thought this was a solid silver. I felt like that there was a lot of personality brought by the photographer to really show us their strength of style, and which in turn reflected in the couple and showed a lot about them. I thought during the journey of their wedding day, their genuine kind of excitement and obvious excitement on the wedding day, but also really enjoying themselves and getting into the whole of the story. And I thought their photography reflected that very well.
Okay, we have a 76, a 76, a 76 and a 78. So why don't we take a comment from one of the boys, then one of the girls, and we'll come back to you, Annie. First to the mic. Thank you, James.
Well, first of all, great saleable image. I found that did have some good playfulness. I felt as if there was kind of like a bit of a process, bit of a shot list, being ticked off at some points. But also, kind of wasn't feeling it. There was a little bit of a disjointed nature, between the Joker and then the balloons making an appearance. Which is it's kind of fun, but between that and photos of your parents with like formal family photos thrown in, perhaps rather than presenting us with something that you actually sold to a client, you could pare it back, to be more tailored for the competition, as a suggestion perhaps. But overall, good, strong professional practice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, James. Kelly or Shireen?
Again, similarly, for me, it's just that inconsistency in treatment. There was just some really, some nicely handled images, and then we sort of halfway through went on a different tangent, I think, and sort of brought in this sort of desaturated, vintagey, sort of warmish tone to some of them, and then again, you do want that flow, you want that consistency, and then just those really heavy black backgrounds on some black and whites that just competed with the images, just let it down for me. But yeah, I mean, good, excellent, like James said, great album for the client, but just professional practice for me.
Thank you, Kelly. And Annie, we'll go back to you for your right of reply.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of go back to some of the things that we're judging in the albums today, and it is difficult when it's such a large amount of images kind of all put together. But I think in this particular case that the photographer has shown a great range across many photography skills, and I think that that's important to look at that. And also I think that what they're showing here in this album that has a lot of different directions is a collaboration between the couple and the photographer, and I don't. It'd be impossible for us to know all of the stories behind the Joker and the kind of different things that have been added in at the beginning of the album. But I'm imagining that that's part of the couple's story and part of their collaboration. So it might be great to look at it again and think about that from their point of view. And I think that it's important not to also tailor the album just for the competition. I think that this is about what the photographer does in their everyday work. I believe that that's what this category is great for, because it actually is about truly who the photographer is and how they're presenting their work with their clients. And I think that that's what this photographer has done in this album here as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's have another look at it. Judges, please, just before you score, it's just come to our attention that a couple of those files are out of order. Are we able to bring up the last image?
Yep.
The last image should have been a central spread in the middle of the album. And the second last image, which we'll also review, was the last image in the album. Does that make sense? Just so the narrative is correct. So you're happy with that, judges? You realise the last image is in the middle of the book and the second last image is the last image. I will now ask you to rescore, and you have. Prince scores 79. So thank you, judges. Okay. Jerry, just do it through the microphone in case the person happens to be in the audience or on live streaming, then they can hear.
Sure. So in case the person's in the room, certainly a beautiful album, solid and saleable. It got a great score. The slightly manoeuvring of the images not being in the exact order that they were wished for, it wouldn't have affected the score. So just know that you're right up there. You're doing professional, solid, beautiful work.
Great. Excellent comments. Thank you very much, judges, for that. We'll accept that score and we'll go and review our next album. Thank you. And the album scores 81, a silver award. But we're going to take a challenge from Simon, James, sorry, on 87. Start the debate, thank you.
Yeah, this is really beautifully shot. It's salt of the earth, Australian wedding. You know, it's this epic outback, which would have, you know, it could be a perfect ad for, you know, destination weddings for people to come to Australia and get married, because really, what a great experience. I mean, I felt this image, like all of the emotion in this image looks just really honest, and they've handled it in quite a delicate way. Like, it looks loose and candid, but there's still quite a strong structure to all of the images. You know, there's freedom in that sort of emotion, but it's at the same time it's still quite tight. The edit's good. There's not much in there that kind of pulls it down in any way. Like, it's all strong, start to finish, super consistent. So it's just a really, really strong work, start to finish. And as photographers, that's the goal, to like have just as good images at the start of the day as at the end of the day. And that's that's showing some prowess. So I gave it a silver distinction because I believe it's really, really solid work.
Thank you, James. Look, we can have a little bit of a chat here. What I will do next is go to Shireen on 78, and then we may go to Kelly on 82, and then we'll come back to you, Jerry. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. I'll preface it by saying that I really did, actually. There was a lot of what you say that I agree with, James. Where I struggled a little bit and where I held it down was there's a couple of things. The first thing was that for me, I felt like there were chunks of the day that I was missing. The ceremony, I just didn't feel like there was anything near enough in the ceremony at all. So the heart of it that I really wanted to see, I felt was lost. And then again, similarly, a little bit later on, whilst I really enjoyed it, I just genuinely felt like there were chunks that didn't allow me to go completely on the journey that I would have liked to have gone on. I was almost there, but not enough. And I think when you sort of look through it again, you'll find that it's very, very short in some particular parts that I think are really important, because we're talking about the wedding category.
Thank you. And Kelly on 83?
Yeah, 83. Yeah, this ticked a lot of boxes for me too. It had that consistency, and it had that simplicity in its design. It wasn't too busy, but it just actually, even to address your comments about a ceremony, I photograph weddings where the couples are like, just give me the short, sharp, quick 5 minutes. It's a civil ceremony. We want to get back to our guests and have a few drinks. There was 2 spreads with the ceremony. I felt that was enough for me personally. But I mean, even looking at sort of going through, highlights of, say, the reception, people were. I wanted to be at that wedding. It made me smile. It made me feel like I was there with them. There was just so much joy and laughter, and it did have that really high consistency level for me. And it ended nicely too. I like the way that they sort of. We ended with some nice portraits with them away from everything, just to sort of tie it all in together and finish it off. So, 83, might be willing to go up a couple, but it's a solid album. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kelly. Jerry?
Can I ask, was this single or multiple photographers?
This is single.
The reason why I asked that question, I feel like there was some inconsistency with the way it was photographed. I feel like there was multiple photographers photographing it. One was a bit stronger and one was a little bit weaker, which basically makes me feel that there were strong moments and there were weaker moments. I look at this and sometimes I can diagnose it in a very clear way, in an artistic way, but then sometimes I just say, should we expect the current generation of photographers be doing this kind of work? So I actually, in fact, judge it a 76. I don't think it was a strong version of professional practice, but it was certainly in that pocket. But when it was posed, there was a lot of work that needed to be posed, like a lot of work with the posing. A lot of the horizons were chopping off at the head. Michelangelo taught us that when we cropping, especially a strong horizontal, it should be below the chest and above the elbow, unless we envelop the subject matter in there as well. I believe also the ceremony, the ritual. If we're talking about an album, we're talking about an album. The ritual of them getting married is, I believe, is incredibly important. So I didn't feel the emotion from there. And then when the speeches happened, I feel like there was several spreads devoted to speeches, highlighting more important than the ritual. And I didn't feel like I was sucked into the emotion and on all those things as well. But as it was starting, I saw these black and whites and these beautiful, these soft romantic black and whites. And I thought, great, it's dramatic, it's feeling good. And then it'll arrest me with a bit of a hipster perspective and then arrest me with a posed perspective. And I'm like, So solid, strong for professional practice. And again, I don't want to talk it down, but I'm going to struggle to go up myself to 85, let alone 80.
Thank you for those comments, Jerry. We will now go back to James for your right of reply.
Fair call. Good work, team. I don't know. I'm just going to start by saying probably, from my experience, my average ceremony time is about 20 minutes now. So how much can you photograph as a single photographer in 20 minutes? I think, the amount of spreads probably honoured the amount of time that was justified on the day. And, if there were moments missing for you, like for the coverage, my average amount of coverage time is 7 hours, and weddings go for all night, so that's my job and that's what people pay for, so that's what they get. So from that point of view, I can understand why the weighting is such, because that's the way you package your service. But yeah, good valid points from Jerry. I kind of believed it all. It seemed consistent for me, but that's just my opinion as well. But I still stand by my silver distinction. Think it's great, strong work, and worthy of an award.
Terrific. Well, the album's currently on 81. We're going to now sit back and have another viewing. Album now scores 83, Silver Award. Okay, we'll accept that score and we'll go on to our last album. And while our judges are viewing this album, I'm just going to plug Memento Pro again, our great sponsor. Not just of the album, but also of the books. So make sure you go and see Jeff and Libby on the stand around the corner, all your book needs and album needs. Okay, judges, if we could enter a score. And we have a score of 77. And the scores range from 76 to 78, so very, very consistent. But we will call on a comment. And seeing as you're also similar scores, let's have 2 comments. One boy, one girl. Jerry, thank you.
It was a solid wedding album. Okay.
Somebody loves you.
Solid wedding album. Very, very professional. I encourage every photographer looking out there to enter albums that sometimes your good saleable wedding, that bread and butter wedding, might be really good, but just might be conducive of getting a good score in a competition. Sometimes it could simply just be that the couple aren't emotive enough, the light wasn't good enough, and all those things. But under the circumstances, they did a good, solid, saleable job.
And would one of our gorgeous lady judges have different comments? Thank you, Kelly.
I don't know. One thing that I'd just like to add, I think perhaps towards the end, just those reception photos, you could see that there was a lot of life and a lot of activity and fun and all sorts of things going on, and they were just so tiny, and it was just, from memory, one spread. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that, even just in one or two more spreads, and just spread out a bit more in the spreads. Oh dear.
Certainly, Jerry. It's all to the benefit of the entrant.
Yeah, it's whenever I design an album for a competition, now that it's digital, it used to be physical, if we recall. What you need to do is design the album, walk away from it for several days. Then when you look at it, don't look at it in the context that you designed it, like your 15-inch MacBook Pro. You've got to project it somewhere like we're doing in a dark room. Know that it's going to be on for about 5 seconds each. So there's also strategy. It's not just, well, this is what the couple bought, let me do it. Like those 30-odd images that they're in the reception spread, we have 5 seconds to absorb it, so they cancel each other out. So sometimes you might say, you know what, I might, even though I designed this for the wedding couple and all that kind of thing, I might have to take them out, pick the eye out of it. So an effective album is not even what you put in, it's what you leave out. But look at it in a different context, dark room, 5 seconds each, and you start to see things. You think, oh my God, I saw that. I can't believe I missed that, and so on.
And look, I believe I've heard that comment as well. It's not so much what you put in, it's what you take out, you know, and you keep the strength and keep the narrative going and the flow. So look, thank you, judges. That's fantastic. I am going to ask you to hold back. We still have to do the PPY judging for this category, which will be in about 5:15, yes. So if you want to have a break, afternoon tea, and I will 5:15. It's now 4:25, 4:30, 4:40. So.